I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Heather. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda is approved. With that, new certified staff candidate introductions, and Adam.
So Abby Watson was planning to be here, but unfortunately wasn't able to make it. She had a sick kiddo at home, but just a quick introduction for her. She is being recommended tonight as the resource room teacher at Lake Orion High School. Earned her bachelor's and master's degrees from Michigan State, Madonna, and Oakland University, and she's currently working towards a master's degree in special education from Eastern Michigan University. And she is coming to us after previous teaching experience in South Lyon, Troy, and Rochester Community Schools. So we're very excited to welcome her to the Dragon family at Lake Orion High School.
Awesome, thank you. I look forward to meeting her when everyone feels better. So before we move on, Heidi, you have a quick...
Yes. Well, good evening. I would just like to note that although the outcome was not what we had hoped for regarding our 25 bond proposal, we respect the decision of our voters and will continue working to ensure that our schools remain safe, effective, and welcoming places for all students. In the weeks ahead, the LOCS Board of Education and our district leadership will carefully review the election results, gather feedback from our community to better understand their priorities and concerns, and our mission remains unchanged, empowering the Dragon community to achieve excellence. So, move forward.
Move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. And with that, Mark will give us some excellence.
Yep.
Great, thank you very much. Until this past weekend, Heidi and I were down at the Ford Field for the marching band state finals. It's really one of the highlights of the year, every year. If you ever get a chance to go, you got to check it out because it's just fabulous. You know, I know Heidi enjoyed it from the stands, and I was down there taking pictures and everything. And they spend so much time, you know, producing the show throughout the year and competing. As we talked about earlier, they won an event this year, which was really exciting. And their show was as bright and as unique as any of them that were out there. So it was really impressive. They finished 6th, so we're really proud of their season and what they did this year. So in 6th in Flight 1, so it was great. Food pantry, the Cyber Dragons from Oakview, they went to the Oakland Hope and they learned about teamwork beyond robotics. They were helping supply food for local families and seeing firsthand the power of service, compassion, and community. Halloween's always a big part of Lake Orion. There were great costumes all through the schools, and you know, everyone was representing. So, thank you. Cross country, you know, the fall seasons are all wrapping up right now, and cross country was really impressive. We sent 2 girls and 2 boys to the state finals, and the boys really shined. Max Honever raced to the 5th fastest time in program history and had all state honors, finishing in 19th place. Freshman Luis Nava was 78th place in 16:08, which is the 25th fastest time in program history. And for the girls, Linda Lopez and Natalie Meldrum placed as well. They had a great day as well, so it was very exciting. There's a lot of Halloween themed things that have happened in the last couple weeks. They did these electrified haunted houses at Paint Creek Elementary, and it was kind of cool because as I moved through them all, like they were building them all in these different ways, and you know, they give them a certain amount of things to put on there, and they all they're putting eyes like on the roofs, and I'm like, I don't know what that means, but then they do these wires at the back and it lights up, so that was kind of the part that made it a lot of fun. The robotics at the Capitol, Team 302 had some representatives. They got to take their passion to Lansing, and they met with staff from a few a senator and representative's office to advocate for the continued support of STEM education and the 99H grant from the Michigan Department of Education. So they're learning how to work with the legislators as well. The trick or treat continues. This is a great tradition and a great community touch point for every year for our students. The Blanche Sims students go into McLaren, and the Stadium Drive students go to Pomeroy, and it happens in the days before. And I think the residents really, I went to both of those, and the residents really connected with the students, and it just, their faces light up because they get to interact with the students, directly. The girls' robotics, a couple weeks ago at Bloomfield Hills High School, there was the one time a year before the competitions start with the full team, they have the girls' robotics day, and our team was just awesome. The girls were so excited, and they were there the whole day. And they ended up finishing as a finalist in the second place in the whole event for the day, and I think there was 30 or 40 teams. It was really remarkable, and they were really proud. I talked to them that that they were able to just do this on their own and not be part of the larger team, and separated and kind of show that they can be as representative and as efficient with the robots. And it's also one of the first times that they get to use the robot in competition, because, once January hits, then it's the whole team in these other competitions. So they got to work a lot of the bugs out as well. And they did really well. Finally, this was yesterday. Learned about some Michigan history at Stadium Drive Elementary. Marissa Barrett shared that they looked at different artifacts, and they asked historians. They learned about asking questions and making connections through various sources. So that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mark?
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to comment on how many robotics things are going on. I just think it's so incredible how involved they are, not just in their competing, but what they do in the community. I just think it's great. I mean, it's unheard of. I didn't even know what robotics was. I mean, as a kid, that was nothing that I was ever offered to do, or anything that's really STEM related when I went through school. So I just think it's great.
Yeah, the first team principles really are center around a lot more than just, there's a lot about team sportsmanship and teamwork, and when they compete, they don't compete individually, they compete as alliances. So they're with another school, and then they break up and they go with a different school, and that's how their matches go. And it's like the root of the whole thing is like this pairing. Heidi saw it last year when she was in Houston, and it's really a unique tenet. There's really nothing else like it in athletics or clubs really across the district, I think, that does that pairing with other schools. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. That brings us to our enrollment update and our presentation with Adam.
All right, very good, thank you. See if we're connected here. We are. Okay. So to begin, we're going to have, this will be presented in a little different format this year, based on feedback that I've received in previous enrollment presentations, just on how hard some of the data is to follow, both here and at home, some from the public and the board. So you have the data in your board packets, so I'm going to be referencing those charts within your board packets, and I'll follow you along, or bring you along page by page, and reference that. But up here, I will just be displaying the high-level overarching themes from each one so that everybody can read that very plainly. Okay?
Julie, correct me, but the public was this data from the packet? Sometimes the presentations get put out on the website. Was the stuff in our packet put on the?
This one wasn't, because it's treated like every other presentation. The board has the first opportunity to see it, and then it can be released to the public.
Okay, so it's not in there. It's not. They don't have that. Okay.
Correct, yeah. Before we start to dig into the data, I just want to give a reminder that this is a snapshot of our attendance, okay? And the date that I used to gather the enrollment data was October 20th, 2025. Numbers are fluid throughout the year and sometimes within the week, and that fluidity can impact percentages, numbers, et cetera, throughout, a school year. So in our presentation tonight also, we are talking about head count numbers, not FTE numbers. FTEs are what Andrea and Cabinet builds a budget on, how our funding is based through the state, federal. So I want to make that distinction that I am only presenting actual head count numbers tonight. The head count numbers do not include our shared time services program, which has a positive impact on our budget, but does not impact our building populations in LO. And it also doesn't include our phases numbers. So if you go to page 4 in your board packet, that will be looking at the district total enrollment. So that kind of corresponds with this slide that is displayed up there. So in your board packet, you see within that chart, you see 3 codes at the top for the column headings, and those are resident, 105 resident obviously represents our resident students. 105C represents our school of choice students, and code 06 represents our employee children. So you have reference to that. Total enrollment on October 20th stood at 6,434 students, with our resident numbers at 5,748 and our SOC numbers at 592. And our SOC numbers represent 9.2% of our total enrollment, which is great because that falls within our board resolution of 10% for the total district enrollment. Any questions on slide 2 in your, or page 4 in your board packet?
Could you just quickly explain what shared time services is, just to have, so the community has an understanding of what that
Shared time services is in our agreements where we provide staffing for some of our parochial schools and whatnot, and they teach like electives, kindergarten, some of the pieces of that programming that is not mandated by the state. So we provide some of that. We get a portion of the FTEs, but it's not anything that's on site. And that's been a practice within Lake Orion, gosh, for close to a decade now, I believe. We started with Eagle Creek, and it has expanded throughout the years, where we go everywhere from kindergarten to we have some electives that we support up at the high school level, like at Warrendale LaSalle is one of our partners through that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if we go now to page 5 in your board packet, this looks at our projected enrollment numbers at the end of last school year in June versus our actual numbers on October 20. Projections are built on data that's available at that time. It plays a large role in our budgeting for the district. It's for our plans for class sections, especially at the elementary, per grade level and building. Big takeaways from this slide here are that on June 20, we projected a total enrollment of 6,405 students, and on October 20, we had a total enrollment of 6,434. That's a positive difference of 29 students, higher than projected, which is great. Good positive for the district, obviously. It does fall in line with how our projections have played out the past few years, with positive differences of plus 13 students a couple years ago. Last year, we were at plus 9, so being at plus 29 is obviously a great thing for the district, and shows that growth that we had from our projections to actual numbers. Any questions on this page in your packet? Okay. Page 6 in your board packet, we're looking at the elementary class sections. A lot of colors and a lot of business on this page. This chart shows our current enrollment at each grade level. You'll see columns in each class section talking about targeted class size and our contractual max class size. That's all based on our current collective bargaining agreement. The number of sections needed versus the actual sections of that grade level, and then the average class size for that grade level in each building. If you see green in the class size section, that means we're good. We're, within a comfortable level of being below the classroom or the contractual max for each classroom. Yellow means that we have room for 1 or less students in a class section before we enter into an overload, and the red means that we are currently have an overload in 1 or more classrooms at that grade level. Of the 116 total elementary class sections, 60% are at or below the targeted class size. That's excellent. That's, optimal learning environments there. That's what we strive for. There are only 9 individual classrooms as of October 20th that were experiencing an overload, which is only 7.8% of elementary class sections. Those overloads existed at that time at Blanche Sims, Orion Oaks, and Paint Creek. And just to give an example and snapshot of the fluidity that we have within our enrollment throughout a year, before starting the school year, we had planned an overload in 1 class section. During the first week of school, we had 4 overloads existing, or 4 different classrooms in an overload, and they were all at 1 building. 6 to 7 weeks later, on October 20, we have 9. So that just kind of gives a a glimpse of some of that fluidity that we can experience with late enrollments, move-ins to the district, et cetera. It can work the other way as well, where we had, of those 4 overloads that first week, one of them was resolved. It was eliminated because a student moved out. So it goes both ways with that, but just kind of gives you a glimpse of that. Any questions on this page?
When you mentioned 60% at or below, and you feel like that's, good, do we have a percentage, do we try to do like 100% at below or targeted class size? Is that like a realistic, or is it, obviously 60% you're saying is good and fair and all that. I'm just curious, like, is there like a target? And is the hope ever 100%? Or is that like?
Well, it's a
ever gonna
fine
happen?
balance between balancing, it's balancing class sizes versus also not being too low in capacity. Like, we wouldn't want to have
Kinda take that
100% at 18 students each. Like, that would be tough, because it'd be going, okay, we're not increasing students, we're increasing staff, we're not bringing in, additional dollars to pay for that. And so all of a sudden, then you're creating, areas where you may be fiscally not being fully responsible with that. So it's a balance with that. So that's where I look at 60%. We don't have a target within cabinet. That's a healthy number right there, though. And that falls in line with where we've been historically and where we kind of want to be. And it's just playing that balance, where sometimes we have bigger cohorts come through and we're above that threshold and we're in an overload. And then we have other times that we're below it and we go, okay, that's good. So.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Any other questions for that?
I'll leave it, that's fine.
Adam, I had a question.
Yeah.
So if we do ever have to create a new section, a new class at elementary, are there available classrooms in the buildings? Are they really crowded right now, or how's that looking?
That would depend on the building, and it depends on the year. Right now, there are a couple of pockets where, we would be able to have some room for that. But it's also difficult with that. You have a lot of things to balance. We have one building that does have some higher numbers. We already know that the following year, and it's an anomaly for that building. The following year, we wouldn't have 4 sections in that grade level, just based on numbers. And so we go, it's November now. Are we going to disrupt the classroom environment? Are we going to disrupt the families? Are we going to, 2 months into the year, a quarter into the year, those relationships, those connections are built amongst adults and students? That's another fine balance. If it's the first week of school, it's a different discussion. When you're talking about the end of the first quarter and we just added 2 students a week ago in that grade level, and we're going, that's not really a good idea. We provide more adult support at that point. And that's part of the overloads with the support when we have those higher numbers. We work with the LOEA and also with our ASME union. We pull from our ASME union to have those adults that go in there for certain amounts of time based on the number and based on the grade level of the overload.
All right, thank you.
That's my question, and I'll follow up on, because his was macro, adding classes. A simple situation where the limit is 27 per grade, and you had 82 kids, so you had 27, 27, 28. One kid leaves from a room that had 27. Would we move a student out of the room, or you would just, again, because you talked about relationships and stuff, it's like, no, we're just going to leave that kid with.
It would depend on the year or the time of the year, but typically we would leave that student put, again, just based on the relationships, and also knowing the fluidity, the odds of adding another 1 student at that grade level at some point before June are more than likely.
Yeah, or, exactly,
Yeah.
unless you got to the situation where 28, and that room is down to 23.
Yes.
Then something you might consider, but understanding the fluidity that we
Yep.
see the top level numbers, and at the micro level, it's, the 80 we started the year with, 6 of them are gone.
Yep.
And 7 more came in.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. Yep. Good questions. Okay. Page 7 in your board packet takes a deeper dive into our elementary school enrollment. There we go. It breaks down numbers for resident, SOC, and employee children at each grade level per building, the elementary level. This data is really key for us when we're looking at our SOC availability during the SOC application period. Each year, again, it's a little bit of a moving target, but we do project a loss of like 1 to 2 SOC students per grade level and a gain of 1 to 2 resident students at the elementary level, and that's just based on enrollment trends and information that we have known at that time. But this is also where we can see the impacts of just having 1 to 2 students changing and how that can cause the SOC percentages to go up or down. For example, if all SOC offers to enroll are accepted and there's no loss of SOC students in that grade level from 1 year to the next, and that gets coupled with the loss of 1 to 2 resident students, that's going to have a big impact on that, in that SOC percentage at that grade level and in that building. We have seen that almost every single year, and it typically involves a conversation with the building principal, with myself, going, hey, and there's also a lot of just connections, like a family that may be enrolled in a certain building in second grade, and the family is a resident student in second grade, and they move out of the district. They get accepted as school of choice. They get placed through the lottery at another building. They've spent 3 years in that other building. I get the building principal going, Adam, we got to get, him or her back in my building for third grade. This is a great kiddo. We want to keep them. We've built the relationship, the support. We know them. Okay, but that's going to put you at, 12.5% for SOC. That is above 10%. Are you comfortable with that? I need you to explain that to your staff. I need to make sure that that is known, that this is a known decision that we are collectively making in the interest of the child. And that is not uncommon with 3 to 4 students each year. So overall, though, happy with the SOC enrollment percentages for each grade level at the elementary. They're overall, it's at or below 10% in the majority of the classrooms or grade levels, with some individual pockets existing that are above 10%. But overall, the district SOC percentage of 9.27% at the elementary level is perfect within our 10% resolution. Any questions on this?
So just drawing to light the 15.79% at Blanche Sims for 5th grade. And we talk about this typically, we might as we go on, where we tend to see a drop off when they enter middle school for SOC. Is there do you tend to see that some continue on, or was that just an Oakview thing? I know we've had some discussions about it.
We will actually talk about this a little bit more in depth when we get to the SOC slide, but typically with the transitions from elementary to middle and from middle to high, we do see some drop off with that. And that's where we know it. And a lot of times it deals with, I'm balancing the piece of, well, I have room at this middle school. You want to go to this middle school, but you're not going to go to this one, but you get assigned here. And they go, well, then we're not going to be in Lake Orion. We're going to go back to this district. And we say, okay. And that's part of sometimes what happens. Other times we do have movement, where families move into the district and they go from an SOC status to a resident status. So there's some different fluctuations, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation.
Okay. And is there any concern about that being the higher percentage for Blanche Sims in 5th grade, the 15.79, or is it?
Like those.
I know the average gets us there, and I know that's what we ask for. I'm just curious. That seems like a steeper number then.
It is a steeper one, and you look at Carpenter as well. Carpenter is one that has been higher throughout, and has been a focus point of that. Some of this has been put in place historically. And so working through those cohorts as they move up the ranks. Okay. Like Carpenter is at 12.31 as a building. That was known that it was going to go up this year because their 5th grade group last year was at a high 7, low 8%. So we had a lower bubble going out and we had 3 higher bubbles moving up that had already been put in place. And so it's like, well, that's going to increase the overall percentage right there. So 15.79, they've been high throughout, and it's been something we've known, and they're in 5th grade, and they will move on to middle school next year, so.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
yep. Any other questions for that slide? Okay, page 8 in your board packet takes a deeper dive into our middle school enrollment, breaking down the numbers for, again, for resident, SOC, and employee children, each grade level per building. Overall, the SOC enrollment percentage for each grade level in middle school is at or below 10%, with some individual pockets existing in various spots above 10%. Overall, the district SOC percentage for middle level is 9.96%. Scripps is a little bit higher at the 11% mark. That is, again, one thing that is identified and seen, but that's also where that enrollment fluidity can have that impact that we've discussed previously. So in December and January, that's a typical time frame that we start to plan for our 5th to 6th grade transition for middle school. We determine which elementary kiddos that are resident, which middle school they're going to go to. We then look at our 5th grade SOC students. We determine where we have room and seats to place, and then we determine which buildings have availability, if any availability, at the middle school level and which grade levels those are. All that, December, January timeframe, that's where we work on that to determine for scheduling purposes, the number of potential seats for SOC open for middle school, et cetera. So any questions on that slide?
So it's obviously out there, so Scripps is down now, and a few years ago, we moved some neighborhoods from Scripps to Oakview because Scripps was packed and Oakview was low.
Yep.
And it just shows that things swing.
Yeah.
So is there any, seeing that there is differences in enrollment between the buildings, is there any consideration that you're thinking of balancing the enrollments? Or are you comfortable and I think I asked the 5th grade, do you have a projection of where the 5th graders are going to go, what's going to hit next year? That
will all be determined in that December, January timeframe. One of the things that was interesting is the resident enrollment. You'll see in 6th grade, it was extremely high with Oakview. So they had a big bubble go through.
Yep.
But that 5th grade group, as they moved up last year, the 6th graders currently, we knew that was a big bubble in the district. So, but they had a large number of students that moved into that Oakview, which really highlighted that difference in enrollment and kind of fully flipped it back to where we were just with the opposite, with Oakview and Scripps, with the high and the low a few years ago. So it's something we're aware of. I know in cabinet we've talked about, looking at that and continuing with it, but it's also something that's difficult because while it's not abnormal to have redistricting, you don't want to do it on an annual basis. So you really want to make sure that you have a good amount of data with that. Leading up to the decision to have the middle school redistricting 3 years ago, I believe it was, 4 years ago, it was moving into the 3rd year. Or this is the 3rd year it's been enacted. Oakview had traditionally been low, and we had seen low numbers, and it was, okay, we have enough data to know that this needs to have a change happen. This is only the 3rd year here of having these numbers kind of flipped, and this is the most that we've seen. Last year, I think the difference was around 70, 75 kiddos, so it's a little bit higher this year, so it's something we're aware of, but you don't want to keep flipping around with families because that's not fair to do either, so, yeah.
Understood. Yeah, so that would be the thing, is if we could look at, say, the 5th graders and the 4th graders, at least from a resident basis, assuming they're not going to move, which is reasonable.
Reasonable
the
assumption.
flexibility goes,
Yep.
to see if there is a need, because at some point,
That might be something.
or the way, or the operation is, no, Scripps is actually running well in this form, because I know that could be a different decision, but just
Yep,
keep an eye
something
on
to
it,
keep
let
an
us
eye
know.
on.
Yep.
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Well, I just hit power right there. Hey, there we go. That was fun. So on page 9 in your board packet, that takes a deeper dive into our high school and learning options enrollment numbers. For our learning options program, you will notice higher SOC percentages. That is known and that is planned, as we discussed, as we've operated with, but as we very explicitly discussed last year, our SOC is run a little differently for learning options. To start, that is the only program for any new 9th through 12th grade SOC students to enroll in. They can't enroll. Our program is not open for Lake Orion High School for SOC. So this means if you haven't been accepted as an SOC student prior to entering 8th grade, learning options or Dragon Virtual is your only option for SOC enrollment, because we do not accept new SOC students in Lake Orion High School. So we have opened up SOC at Learning Options as a district to offer enrollment as we have seats available. So we do not work within that 10% limit that exists in our other buildings, kindergarten through 8th grade. So just wanted to point that out. Overall, though, the district SOC percentage for each grade level at Lake Orion High School is at or below 10%, and the overall SOC percentage for Lake Orion High School is at 9.14%. So happy with those numbers there. Any questions on high school?
I just have a thought and curious, because we opened that up at Learning Options, is there interest in that program on our part, and how many seats could we offer in that?
It depends on, because resident obviously takes first and foremost, so that does depend on that. But and also depends on the virtual piece of it, because virtual, we obviously have a higher capacity because we're not taking up seats and physical space there. But there's fluctuations, there's hybrids that we have, so I don't think that there's an exact formula. It's very case dependent.
On slide 9, where do virtual students get counted? In LOHS or in?
They would be, well, it would depend on if they're an LOHS student or if they're a school of
Okay,
choice
so
student.
they both,
Yeah.
but you can do virtual for options or LOHS? I think that was my question. If you're Dragon Virtual, are you always assigned to one or the other, or you could be either?
It also depends upon how many classes. So some could be at the high school, some could be at Learning Options.
Where they're coded, just
Yeah,
depends on.
exactly. Yep.
Okay. Moving on to page 10 in your board packet. At this point, we will kind of transition to some historical data, comparisons, projections, et cetera. Page 10 looks at resident enrollment migration. The yellow table looks at new DK and kindergarten resident enrollment from the previous year. I emphasize new because if they were previously enrolled in DK, they are not considered new because we knew that they were here already. This year we are up 27 new DK and kindergarten students from last year, a 2.4% increase, which is great. Previous 2 years there was a decline here, so I was very happy to see us break that trend and move in a positive direction. The green table highlights new DK and kindergarten students when compared to exiting seniors. You will see red numbers here since the 2007-2008 school year, which tracks with population trends at the county, state, and national level. So it's not something that is unique to Lake Orion or that's unique to this school year. We've seen that. The red 132 means that we have 132 less new incoming DK or kindergarten students compared to exiting seniors. In the blue table, you will see our enrollment changed by only 72. This is because we had an increase of 60 resident students, kindergarten through 11th grade, from last year to this year. That data is depicted in the orange table on the far right. The orange table I find very helpful, and it's one that I really focus on because to me, that's one that we have more control over. That is the resident students, once they enroll, how do they track through their Lake Orion time? Since the 2012-2013 school year, you will see only 1 year where we experienced a decline from 1 year to the next for the previous K through 11 resident enrollment, and that 1 year was COVID. So it's got some reasoning behind it right there, so very positive right there. And then when you look at the 3, 5, and 10-year averages, you see positive numbers, which represents the absolute stability of our resident enrollment, which is something that we pride ourselves on.
Yeah.
Any questions on this table? All right, we'll move on to page 11. Page 11 looks at our projected kindergarten enrollment. Just some quick history with the live births. So live births, and we've talked about this in previous years, but across the county, state, and the country, they have been consistently declining for over 20 years now. So again, not something that's unique to the Lake Orion community or this school district. Nationally, they dipped to the lowest levels in 2023 since the 1940s. And in Michigan, they dipped below 100,000 births for the first time since the 1940s. Oakland County has shown similar declines, but not quite as drastic. In 2019, our current first graders, the live births dipped below 13,000 in Oakland County for the first time since the 1970s. That's a significant mark right there. And our current kindergarten class only had 12,298 live births in Oakland County in the year 2020, and that was a decrease of 4.66% from 2019. Now, the capture rate is the next important piece that I want to highlight. That capture rate is how many of these births are we enrolling in Lake Orion Community Schools? Because of that 12,298, that's across the entire county. That's not just in Lake Orion, obviously. So how many are we enrolling? And over the years, you'll see great consistency with just a few outliers below that 3% mark since 2008, which is excellent. Our projected resident enrollment for this year, based on the trends and data and birth rates, was 383, and our actual resident kindergarten enrollment for this year was 382, which represents over a 99% accuracy, which is great. And the bigger piece that I want to highlight is that despite the 4.66% drop in live births in Oakland County for this year's incoming kindergartners, we actually had an increase of 9 resident kindergarten students this year compared to last, because our capture rate went up just over 2% this year. So that was a very good number as well. Any questions on that page?
Did tick up a little bit for 2024.
It did. It went back up to higher 12,000s there, which,
Yeah, of like 200 more births. So.
yeah, I'm hoping we keep that capture rate and we see maybe even flirt with over 400 again. That's my goal, so. Any other questions on that slide or that page? All right, so page 12 in your board packet looks at resident enrollment migration per building from last year to this year. So we'll just kind of focus in at Weber Elementary there. In 2024-25, there were 66 resident kindergarten students. In 2025-26, there are still 66 resident first grade students. So that tells me that there was a 0% or a zero change from kindergarten to first grade. And then that tracks throughout the other grade levels in the buildings. So the data you see tracks the numbers of each cohort of students per building from last year to this year. The big highlight here is that with the small amount of red numbers that exist across all buildings and all grade levels, again speaks to our great consistency and stability of our resident population. It also follows the enrollment projections that we have discussed earlier tonight and last year. One of the things I'd like to touch on here are the housing developments in our community. We spoke about it last February. Just wanted to touch base on it again. We hear about it all the time. We see it personally. But last spring, we brought in Stanford Consulting to look at our enrollment projections. They're the experts. We also work closely with our local municipalities that together compose our district population just to gather information on the housing developments. Consultants are the expert in the field of projections, so that's why we brought them them in to help inform us. In Orion Township, and this was data that isn't in your packet, but we presented and talked about last year, where there is building occurring, none of it forecasts a large population boom due to the type of housing that's being developed. There's been a steady decline in the number of single-family building permits in Orion Township since 2017, with the number dropping from around 200 to just under 30 in 2023. And in Oakland Township, which only has 22% of it within our district boundaries, single-family building permits have been declining for the most part since 2012, with the number dropping from just above 200 at that time to around 40. So that is across the whole township, not just the 22% that falls within our boundaries. In the village, there were 0 single-family building permits issued in 2024. So while there is development occurring, the type of housing developments currently going up do not speak to school enrollment population booms, and that has, followed, and our data has tracked that trend throughout the last several years. Any questions on this slide or this page?
And what would be considered a boom? So, I mean, we can expect some increase, correct? I mean, but what would be considered like, whoa, like that was
I mean,
not
if we
what I
had an
expected.
increase of, if all of a sudden our graduating classes as a cohort went from 450 to 600.
I got you.
That would be a boom, right? That would be a, wow, we really feel that. A trend of going, well, we lost 20 or we gained 20, I wouldn't consider that a boom.
Okay.
It would be something that you're talking, triple digits, adding 500 students across the district, something along those lines. And typically, and this was something that we know, but the Stanford consultants really hit on. They said, you're not going to see that unless there is either major housing developments, which you don't have, going up. He said you don't have the area to do that, or you have like a big economic impact, like you bring in a brand new plant or 3 plants, and all of a sudden, wow, there's a lot of economic boom, which correlates to housing boom, which correlates to more students and families moving into the area. So, and we just haven't had that. We've had consistency, we've had stability, but we haven't had that boom.
Fair enough.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate you reviewing that, because I think there's a misnomer in the community when they see the building going on, that why aren't you guys paying attention to this and anticipating an influx of enrollment? And for quite some time now, we've been what's been referred to as an aging out district.
Yeah.
And there's several of us a part of that now. Our kids are out of the district and we still live in the house that we live in.
Yep.
And there's a lot of that in this area, and I probably in all of Oakland County, to be honest. So
Correct.
it's just interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is, definitely.
I mean, the population of Oakland County is growing, but the population of women in childbearing years from 1990 to current has gone down by 12% because the population is stretching in age.
Yep.
And then the amount of births per year from people in that range has gone down by 16%.
Well, there's also been a demographic.
So we have 30% fewer babies in Oakland
Yes.
County over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And that is the whole key of school population in Oakland County.
Absolutely. And there's been changes in lifestyles and whatnot of, 2 professional working, partners, maybe not married, marriage is delayed, children is delayed. Like there's now, instead of having 3 to 4, it's 1 to 2. So there's been a lot of changes with that as well that was highlighted for us. And that is, again, you track that data. I mean, a 30% decline, that's
It's
significant.
the first year that there were fewer than 1 birth per 100 people
Yes.
in the county.
Yeah.
That there were 12,000 births, but there's more than 1.2 million people.
Yeah.
30 years ago, it was 17,000 births for 800,000 people.
Yeah.
That it's.
And when we're
the
hitting
way the
nationally and
So why do we
statewide,
have more houses? Well, we went from a population of 800,000 to 1.2 million. Smaller family sizes, you need more houses.
Yeah.
But it doesn't put more kids in the school. So it's
Correct.
all about
yeah,
the demographics of aging in place and other things like that. So I agree, Birgit, that people see all the building going on, but the number of households that have school-age children has dropped significantly.
Yep. Across the country.
Across the country.
I mean, when we're dealing with state
one of the
and
good news is
national
people are living
averages
longer.
that are in the 1940s, that's 85 years ago. That's World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. So, yeah.
The baby boomers still have their own households,
Yes.
but very few baby boomers have school-age children in their
Yes.
homes. So that's the aging of the population.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree. Page 13 in your board packet looks at the resident enrollment migration per graduating class currently at the high school and learning options. So again, this is only looking at our resident enrollment. This, again, shows great consistency and stability as each grade level cohort has experienced overall growth in resident numbers throughout their time as LOCS students. There are very few red numbers in the classes, and growth ranges from 2.2% for the juniors to 10.63% for the freshmen, which is great. And overall, the graduating classes currently in 9th through 12th grade have increased by a total of 106 resident students since they started in kindergarten. Across all grade level cohorts, which you don't see in yours because it'd be too hard to read. But across all grade level cohorts from 1st to 12th grade, we are up a total of 271 resident enrollments. That's great. Any questions on this page? Okay. Page 14 in your board packet looks at the historical graduating class resident enrollment from their enrollment in kindergarten to their graduation. Common theme tonight, consistency. When we get resident students in Lake Orion, we don't tend to lose them. Almost 70% of our graduating classes since 2014 have seen an increase in their number of resident students from kindergarten to their senior year. To note, the two classes that experienced the greatest decline in kindergarten, they enrolled in kindergarten in the 2004-2005 school year and in the 2005-2006 school year. Shortly after these years, our state and Oakland County experienced an economic recession and the housing market crashed. That, I would tend to argue, played a significant factor in those reduction in class sizes from start to finish in Lake Orion. This year's class has grown by 27 resident students since their kindergarten enrollment in the 13-14 school year, and last year's graduating class increased by 28 resident students since their kindergarten enrollment in the 12-13 school year. Any questions on this page? Page 15 in your board packet, this looks at our SLC retention data. So just as a quick history, we began accepting for schools of choice. Our schools of choice program, we began as a district for the 2013-14 school year. And that first year, we only accepted students in grades kindergarten through second grade, and it was only at, I think, 4 of the 7 buildings that we had in place at that time. So it was a very limited enrollment that we had for that first year. Had success with that, and then the 2014-15 school year, we opened up to start accepting schools of choice students in K through 8 and at learning options. Over the years, it's kind of ebbed and flowed and has become more defined throughout the years. One of the goals, speaking transparently, for schools of choice has been to fill open and available seats within the district without creating additional sections in any buildings or grade levels, while bringing in additional revenue and funding for the district. And it's been a good balance that we've been able to maintain, and we've been, I think the partnership between board and cabinet has been very good in making sure that we stay within our comfort limits with all of the schools of choice program. About 4 years ago, we had great discussion and collaboration as a board and cabinet on defining that 10% for grades K through 8 to not exceed 10% of the building population or total district enrollment where there's space available. And then last year, we just kind of defined what our practice had been with schools of choice for learning options by including that verbiage in our administrative recommendation to the board. So currently, our SLC SOC enrollment sits at 592, which is about 9.2% of our total enrollment, which we talked about a little bit ago. This is an increase in 43 schools of choice students across the district from last year. Several factors contributed to this and can each year with it. Last year, we had an abnormally high amount of families decline or fail to enroll after being offered an SOC seat in Lake Orion. This year, we had a high amount of enrollment seats offered and seats accepted. I'm like, oh, they all accepted this year, which is good. We also experienced a slight decline in the amount of schools of choice attrition that we had from last year to this year, which again is a good thing. SOC fluctuations we talked about a little bit ago, they can most commonly occur during the transitions from middle to high, or from elementary to middle or middle to high. That usually depends mainly on life situations. We do also have SOC families that move into the district. That number drops at that point, and it's viewed as attrition on this chart. It's not attrition for the district. And then there's also the sibling factor, which we experience each year mainly in the elementary, where we may have like a current second grade SOC student. Their sibling who's coming into kindergarten has to apply and go through the lottery. They may not get accepted or be put onto a wait list through the lottery. And instead of having kids in multiple districts, that family says, I got to keep them together. We'll just go to our enrollment or our resident district and try to re-enroll through schools of choice next year. So those are some of the factors that we do experience with schools of choice. Any questions on this page?
I just had a quick question that kind of popped in my head. Considering, some of the financial things we're facing, future, present, would there ever be discussion or consideration in raising the amount of school choice students or above 10%? Would that be, and I wasn't here when, obviously all of it's, was put into place and the history of it. I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts and what that would look like and that kind of thing. Just curious.
The thought always, the history always was that we are looking to fill open seats to get those numbers. If we can do 25 per grade, let's get it to 25 per grade, because that brings in extra revenue with minimal additional cost. We don't have to hire another teacher. We don't have to open another building. Where it becomes an issue is if you get much beyond 10%, then the question becomes, are you operating a school building for school of choice students? Because if we got to 15%, let's say, someone could say to us, at elementary, you're running 6 elementary schools and 15% of the students are SOC. If we stopped doing SOC, why don't we just run 5 elementary schools? So to stay true to our, so far, and we're open, the 7 of us can decide where we want to take this, but that was the heritage that said we're looking to bring in additional revenue to fill open seats. We're not looking to keep buildings open, bring in, because there are districts in Oakland County that have more than half their students that are school of choice, and their issue becomes, when we have to go to our residents for either a sinking fund or a bond, we're repairing and furnishing buildings for students in other towns that aren't paying for this. So for us, I've always felt like we can look at our residents and say, the buildings we have are for Lake Orion students, and we just happen to have some other school of choice kids that come in who want to be dragons, but we're not furnishing or building or equipping. We don't have a significant capital cost related. So that's where the history came in, that if we go too far beyond 10%, it's questionable why we're doing it.
Yeah, right. And I was just curious, because I know the premise of it is to bring in revenue. There has to be a balance, and I'm just curious if what that looked like, knowing there are other schools who do it.
So when it was started, we had deep discussions as a board, and Jake is exactly right with what he just professed on there, and it is what resonated with the community as well. They didn't want us to go on a high percentage. They were uncomfortable with the thought that we become diluting the whole point down for that, and then creating schools for students outside of our district originally, right? Even though they're ours, they become ours. So we're towing a fine line of what works without creating a whole different dynamic for what creates Lake Orion schools and our buildings and our budget. And I just want to remind everyone, yes, it is budget increase, but we were looking at it, we were looking at deep cuts in that era when it began. And we needed to, it's a double-edged sword. It's budget, but it was programming.
Yeah.
We had to save programming for the kids. So that is the genesis of how that all came about, and with the careful consideration then. And are you suggesting we
No,
we look at that?
it literally just popped into my head so, I mean, it's not so much that I would suggest or am in favor of it. I just know, the constraints that we're in financially. Just curious if anybody had considered
So,
adjusting it and even what that would look like. I just wanted to bring it up. Nothing, one way or the other. That's good, though. And I appreciate the articulation, because that makes complete sense. So, thank you for that.
Any other questions on that side?
or you have more?
I just have just a quick summary, but that is it, so, yeah.
Well, I was curious to know if we still do anything in the transportation realm for schools of choice? Did we used
We
to
do.
do a hub?
We did for a few years there.
Okay.
We have not this year,
Okay.
and that's mainly due to staffing. So we
makes
have not. I don't know that I would be able to say that it made a significant impact either direction.
That was going to be my next question.
There were some attendance improvements
And
that
my
we
next
felt with current students, but we didn't see an increase in
When you stopped.
desire for that. So, yeah, so we do not do that currently.
I mean, we all know that there is a lot of stress right now currently in our transportation department. So that was one of the things we had to take a look at too,
Yeah.
staffing.
It's complete sense. I just was curious because I didn't know.
Which, I mean, even goes to Jake's point, right? Like, just even of the discussion of the dynamics that it can bring and the resources that we have and
Exactly.
and that whole ethical,
Just wanted to say it out loud.
yes, yep, that's good.
Good. Anything else? So to just kind of sum everything up, a lot of positives to take away. A lot of consistency and stability in our resident enrollment, both historically and in the present. We have a positive difference of 29 students across the district when comparing to our projected numbers to our actual numbers from June until October. And that includes a positive difference of 4 students at the elementary, 9 at the middle, and 16 at the high school. All good things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next is public participation related to action items on the agenda, which we have none this evening, so moves us to strategic area discussion items, governance with Heidi.
Okay, first, legislative update. I have and will continue to share with our board, staff, and community the highlights, what is occurring in Lansing. Michigan has a serious issue regarding school aid funding. It's not a shock to any of us. But for more than a decade, state leaders have relied on the school aid fund as a convenient fix for budget gaps. This year alone, more than $1.4 billion in the K-12 revenue has been shifted to non-K-12 purposes, the largest diversion in state history. I think this is really important for people to understand because this is not what you are seeing in the headlines. Over $15 billion has been siphoned off since 2011. Those aren't investments in education. They're transfers to mask a structural deficit. Yet legislators are touting game-changing investments in schools and classrooms across Michigan with record per pupil funding of over $10,000 for every kid. Andrea will share specifically what you are not seeing in the headlines and the actual impact of the budget on LOCS, which I think is critical to make sure that the board understands as well as our community. In addition, this budget also includes significant amendments to 31AA, which we all know is mental health and safety. The 31AA line item was first introduced in 2022-23 in the Michigan School Aid budget as a new dedicated funding source to help schools strengthen student mental health and safety supports. From the outset, this intent was to give school districts broad local flexibility to determine how best to use the funds, whether to hire mental health professionals, implement safety initiatives, or develop prevention programs tailored to community needs. Over successive budget cycles, however, that flexibility we have seen has been gradually reduced. The number of eligible uses has been constrained over time. Oversight and opt-in requirements have increased, and per-pupil allocations and ongoing status of this fund have become less certain, in a time where I contend needs a significant increase. This year, out of the blue, to receive this funding under this section, districts must agree in advance to the following in the event of a mass casualty event: to be subject to a comprehensive investigation following such a mass casualty event, waive any privilege that would otherwise protect related information from disclosure, fully comply with investigation process, which the investigation would be conducted by an investigator or entity designated by the governor. And this requirement, this waiver, has no temporal limits, whether retroactively or prospectively. Furthermore, the definition of a mass casualty event is defined broadly to include incidents that occur on school grounds or at school activities that result in significant injuries to not fewer than 3 individuals, or fatalities, or demands that exceed normal local emergency response capacity, a sudden and timely surge of emergency service needs, whatever that may mean. While it appears that the legislature intended this provision to address incidents such as school shootings or other large-scale tragedies, the language as written could encompass a much wider range of situations. These recent mid-year changes to Section 31AA, including new definitions, legal conditions, and procedural hurdles, have introduced confusion and slowed implementation. Our district has been trying, among other districts, without success, to get clarification from MDE regarding the waiver, which must be signed to receive the funds. Superintendents and boards of education have not been provided with clear details to make an informed decision on such an important matter that will impact the potential safety of our schools and mental health of our students. The requirement for a district to sign the waiver, in combination with the absence of clear and definitive answers to the reasonable questions, has put schools, staff, and students at greater risk. We have asked specifically, here are a few examples of some of the questions and clarification we have been trying to get. A few examples: does the waiver of privilege apply only during the funding period or indefinitely after the grant period ends? No answer. Does the waiver apply retroactively to records created before the grant period or only to records generated during the period of funding? Again, no answer. Does the waiver terminate when the district no longer participates in 31AA funding? No answer. You would think that all of this would be addressed in the legislation because these are, right, pretty common sense questions regarding this funding. Another one: what specific privileges are intended to be waived? Attorney-client privilege, attorney work product, student privacy under FERPA, employee privacy protections, medical confidentiality under HIPAA or state law? No answers. How does this waiver interact with federal privacy laws such as FERPA, HIPAA, or IDEA. What we have been told by MDE is we've been directed to contact our legal counsel, which of course we have, who has also been provided with no more clarification. They're not the ones that wrote the legislation, therefore they can't answer the questions that we are trying to get answered. Legislators are dodging their responsibility to further clarify the legislation while shifting 100% of this accountability on school districts. We're meant to figure it out. What were they intending when they wrote this? I guess we're supposed to read minds. Being asked to make this decision in such a short time frame without a clear understanding of the implications will put schools and students at great risk. This currently lies squarely at the feet of the governor, the Michigan legislature, and MDE, all which have claimed that they're acting in the best interest of students. I'm frustrated. This is a disingenuous position to promote, given those individuals represent school districts, and this is where I think really gets to me. No one was asked, none of you were asked, Board of Education, staff, superintendents, consulted or survey regarding any of this decision regarding 31AA, which I contend is some of the most critical funding at this stage in our society today. So we have been asking, we have been writing legislators, trying to get communication, trying to get answers to our questions, and asking that there must be an immediate resolution to this situation by lessening or removing the restrictions, providing specific clarification for our questions, or a combination of the two. Something needs to happen. Had superintendents, Board of Education, staff, been consulted during the budgeting process, this would be well known and we would not be having these questions because, again, they would have had the information that they would have needed to write this legislation. It's just another example of legislators having no idea of the impact of their decisions. For our district, this is approximately $1 million. At this point, we must have a decision as to whether we are signing the waiver or not by November 30th. It was November 16th. We've been granted a little extra time. Based on what I know today, having consulted with legal counsel, other districts, gathering as much information as possible, and still not having answers to any of the pertinent questions, as we sit today, I cannot recommend signing the waiver. However, I will continue to provide the board with all information and updates regarding 31AA, and we will have further discussion at our November 19th board meeting. We are continuing to push, and I'm remaining hopeful that we hopefully will have some more information in order to be able to make an informed decision. But that's where we stand on 31AA. As if that's not enough, and I'm only going to highlight a couple things happening in Lansing. So there's a lot going on. It's hard to keep up with at this point. But as if this is not enough, there's also a current bill on the House floor, Bill 4588, which would make school board elections partisan. Nothing regarding schools should be partisan. It should not matter which side of the aisle you are on when it comes to educating youth. The priority should always be what is in the best interests of students, not about which party you side with. I know that Birgit has also had lots of information regarding this bill, so I will allow her to step in here at this point in time and give what you have heard regarding this one. It's quite concerning.
Yeah, this was brought up by, I don't even remember the rep's name, and a board member actually worked with him on this, and that's what's the most shocking to me. I think they're trying to solve a problem for which, they're providing an answer for which I don't think there was a problem. And it's important that we don't lean at any particular party at the board table. We're all here for the kids. And we're all here as volunteers. We're elected officials, but we're volunteers. Nobody's here for the money. We don't get paid. And if you dive deep into what the implications of this are, it would put Board of Education elections into a primary. There would be dual elections. It would cost a lot more money. There would be a lot more fundraising. And now that sets a whole different dynamic for backing and fundraising, et cetera. And that takes completely away from the role of what we're here to do, and that's what's best for kids. Something really important to note on this is that people who work for the federal government cannot run for an elected seat that is partisan. And I know that there are seated board members throughout the state that are federally employed, and that automatically takes them out.
They would have to resign.
They would have to resign, and on the MAS Board of Directors, there's 3 of them already, and they're done if that goes through. I think it would be really hard in a soup search to find, if you become a partisan board, to find a good common ground with somebody who's willing to work with the board. The setup is just, I can't think of a positive reason for that legislature, that piece of legislation to go through. And I should have prefaced all of this by saying it had hit committee and died. And last week it got resurrected, made it out of committee, and is on the House floor, and that's why we're talking about it today. It went way too easy. So I wanted to put it on your radar because I need you guys to take some action on it. Anything else to add on that? Any other comments anybody wants to add?
Birgit, can you remind me, because I know you were there as well, at MASB, they spoke of this, right? And they were hoping it would just die at that
and
point.
that's what
And
it looked
now
like
it
was
has
happening.
resurrected since we were
It
at
has legs
MASB.
now. It has legs, yes. Yes.
Wow.
In 2 weeks, no,
The only hope,
not even. Yeah.
yeah, so the only hope is that the Senate has not taken up anything that the House Education Committee has sent them. That's dysfunctional in a different way, but that dysfunction would actually serve a purpose here if the Senate refuses to take up this bill, if it somehow passes the House. But I agree with Birgit, let's try to kill it in the House and tell them this is not good for kids. That having boards that, just in what world could that possibly be good for kids, is having a bunch of partisans doing this role?
Well, we see it's not working currently, so, but.
Well, the boards are working
Yeah, the
now.
board-
But the
yes,
board,
yes.
the partisan
Yes.
nature of the
Did she just throw us under the bus? I thought we were getting along here.
No, Lansing. Again, while I do not believe, I've never believed, never will believe that politics should play a part in education, I've come to learn that it is the politics that is blinding those in Lansing to do what is right by students. So I encourage all stakeholders to start paying close attention. Things are moving very quickly, and different ideas. There's something new every day, at least one thing, but some of these are extremely concerning.
If I get a hold of a resolution, I would push it forward in the next board meeting to take a stronger
Absolutely.
stand, and you can use it to advocate.
I like it.
I know. Both of those, the 31A and that, I mean, we talked about MSB. There are boards in this state that have vacant seats because, and making this a partisan, that, I mean, board, people wouldn't want
Changes
it.
everything.
And, actually, Heather and I had a conversation earlier, honestly, about the 31A money. Kids, there's a teacher shortage, and signing away that, it's not going to help a cause of attracting teachers to a district where they could face consequences for going to work, honestly. And so, yeah. So, Birgit, if you could get some resolutions, I would love that. Yeah.
I'm highly thinking David Randall's is probably hot on this. And
Yeah.
we have a GRC, an OCSBA GRC meeting next week, and I'm looking forward.
Yes, absolutely, because none of this is what's benefiting
It's
students
not what's
at this
best for
point.
kids.
Exactly, so.
I mean, one of the legal counsel pointed out that, under this this current 31AA proposal, criminals would have more rights under this than what educators would have if this, I mean, it is going through, if we sign this. It's just,
Yeah, you're waiving your constitutional rights, the Sixth Amendment. It says that you have the right to be represented by legal counsel. But if you want to give that away, you can voluntarily give away your constitutional rights. Interesting choice they put before us.
And boards, that impacts boards. too,
yes,
again.
yes. Yes.
Us as individuals.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you would lose your
Absolutely.
right to attorney-client privilege if an event was to occur and they were to come after us, we would lose our governmental immunity, and you would, if you were to be sued, you would not have the right to have attorney-client privileged conversations.
And correct me if I'm understanding this, and also my Fifth Amendment, correct?
Correct.
We would be leaning into the Fifth Amendment if we didn't have a Sixth Amendment.
And the First Amendment, and then,
Right? And so on and so
All the Bill of
forth.
Rights at this point.
and so, when I first initially was brought up, I just assumed there's no possible way. It'll get challenged legally, it's unconstitutional. But in the meantime,
Here we are.
we only have until November 30th?
Well, and we only have one more board meeting this month, and
right.
that's in
So
2
we really have
weeks.
to-
Yes.
It's very unlikely that the courts can proactively look at this, if they even can, because oftentimes something has to go wrong. Someone has to be damaged by the law to bring a suit to say that law is unconstitutional. And the sad case in this is some district that took the money has now had a mass casualty event, and they get to push it through court to say, hey, but those provisions aren't legal. But you basically have to roll the dice, take the risk that you're giving these things away, and some court will restore them. So that's a decision we'll have to make, but Heidi will continue to look into it for a couple weeks.
Is there any inclination at all that they will change course and just do an amendment to allow us this process to not even occur and be able to access those funds? Like, is there any movement in
There has
sight?
been no movement, no answer to nothing at this point. Crickets.
Birgit,
And we have been pushing.
has there been a push from any advocacy that you've seen from school to say that, would it do any good to reach out to our legislators and say, on that one, and say, can you please repeal those 31AA? Is that a call to action?
I haven't seen anyone put a call to action out on it, and I suspect the bulk of that reason lies in the lack of the details in interpretation. And I think that's the guys that the
problem,
government's
yes.
leaning on right now, because I think, this nobody saw this coming. They're working on the budget. It's in the wee hours of the morning, and then boom, it comes, and oh, by the way, it's got this in it.
Yep.
And everybody was caught off guard.
Yes.
And my observation, and henceforth, nobody knows really what's going on with it.
Right.
That you've got these directions that everyone sees what they are, and nobody who wants to claim responsibility to it and what it means yet. And I think that's the reason, because we're surmising, right? We can say it, but until they own up to what the definition is, how this plays out, your administrative guidelines, it's hard to go, what are you doing?
And if we get to November 30, or, our next board meeting, however it works, and we're like, we're not comfortable until we have a further explanation, there is no way to then access those funds ever for the rest of the school year, correct? Until the next budget, if they were to change it.
At this point, for what we know, no.
Do we have a impact to share as far as what that would, losing those funds would look like practically for our day-to-day? Is that something that we'll get to?
We have taken a look at it, and at this point, this is something, right, it's simply this is a priority.
Yes.
So we will figure it out.
Okay.
there are other districts, and that's the other thing, is we're talking right amongst ourselves, and there are some that are, not willing to sign the waiver. There are other districts that are going to be forced because they just don't have the funds, and they can't not, right, have these resources for kids. So it really is, even across the county, is really, depending upon district.
So I'm hearing that essentially we will find a way to continue to provide the services that we are providing.
Absolutely.
Because that's goes without saying that we absolutely have to have that,
No question.
if not more, that we wish
That is
that we could have to serve our students and families.
Yes.
Okay.
I've been under the premise, since a lot of this has occurred, that had this been an election year for the legislature, not much of this would have occurred. And I want us to remember, as we move forward and advocate, as the next budget cycle comes in, we got to remember to ask for and hold people accountable for the things that they put in.
Yeah, right now, we care more about roads.
Well,
Okay, we need to move on. Regarding the 2018 bond update, the only thing to report is, again, the auxiliary gym, which we expect to be done at some point in December. So, and then the 2025 bond proposal, I opened up with saying, we will continue to, we will gather information and have a discussion, at a further board meeting once I again, gather more information and, see our next steps. And then the other thing is, in your packets, there is a revised board meeting schedule that is attached with changes in April and May. There was a scheduling conflict, so that is for the board review and approval this evening. And I think that's it.
Okay. Any questions before we move on? Okay, thank you, Heidi. All right, we'll move on to student achievement with Drew.
All right, very short and sweet for me this evening, just bringing forward for approval the international field trip that was presented at our last board meeting. So just bringing that for the board's approval this evening, and is the only update I have tonight.
Thank you. Unless there's any questions on the field, I don't even call it a field trip. It doesn't feel like it does it justice, but exactly international field trip. We were presented. Yeah, I know it does not feel right to say it's a field trip. So, okay. All right, we'll move on to human resources with Adam.
I've done a lot of talking tonight, so I'll be short as well. I would like to recommend for hire the certified staff member as listed in your board packet.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. And finance and operations, which I don't feel like is going to be as brief. That's okay.
Not quite as brief. So to elaborate on the budget for where Lake Orion stands, I took a look at where we ended for the 24-25 school year, and then I took a look at what the state provided, and looked at this as though there was no change in per pupil, so that we're comparing apples to apples here. So I'm not talking about the budget that was approved by the board in June. I'm really looking at, what was the effect of the state budget that was passed for Lake Orion specifically. So assuming the per pupil flat, no change, we received would receive a $3,033,000 increase.
I think you mean the pupil count stays flat. The per pupil rate would have gone up?
Yes.
Yeah, because
Did
you
I
were saying
say
the
that
per
incorrectly?
pupil. You said per pupil was flat, but it's really the per pupil increase and the pupil count. The pupil
yes.
count stays flat.
At the at the 10,050 per pupil rate. Thank you. There's a bunch of different sections under the MIPSERS 147, which is funding, the actuarial liability, and there were some pieces of that hit bottom. There's other portions that are flow through, but we had one that was taken away of about 604,000. We have another that has a decrease of about 158,000. The biggest one, the 147A4, which was the one-time funding that we received last year for not receiving a per pupil increase, that decreased $3,030,000. We have a slight increase with a 147E. There is a new 27L. There are two parts to the 27L. There's a 27L2, which I'm not considering because that is money coming in, which has to go out. The piece I am considering here is the 27L4, which is supposed to go towards MIPSER's costs for the district. So that's an addition of $770,000. We have a small decrease of $200 for enrollment stabilization. And then the 31AA, the new that we've been talking about, right? What we've assumed with this is that we're not taking it with what we know right now. So that would be a decrease of $785,000 to the budget. If we had taken it, it would be $259,000 increase. So not taking the 31AA into account, we would have a net decrease in state funding of $731,000. That equates to approximately 105 per pupil decrease. So again, leading to Heidi's point, where what you hear in the headlines is a per pupil funding increase, huge increase to over 10,000, 10,050. That's not what it equates to bottom line. We're actually getting a decrease from the state on the revenue side of things. So I just want to make sure that's clear after going through all of the details of the budget.
Yeah, so what I had something written for the Finance Committee report, and I was going to say, I don't want to say to be fair, because what the state did to us wasn't fair. So, but if we were to take 41A money, and have a flat per pupil count, our funding from the state would have went up by 0.4%. The 9608 to 10,050 is a 4.6% increase. What happened? It's a shell game. They gave us one-time money of over $3 million, which is over 4% of our state revenue, and they pulled it and said, but you get a 4.6% per pupil increase. Nets out to 0.4%. Put huge strings on the 31A money, and we could be looking at a 1% decrease in funding from the state. But even if we took the 31AA money with all the strings attached, their shell game basically shorted us $3 million, over about $400 per pupil, over $400 per pupil. So I said it at the last meeting, it's the oldest accounting trick in the book. Give one-time money this year, give a decent increase the next year while pulling back the one-time money and hoping nobody notices. And we're calling the state out. We noticed. So their priorities for education, they added an extra $400 million in diversion of state school aid money that went to post-secondary education. So now it's more than all the money that the lottery sends the school aid fund is being diverted to higher education. If they just gave us the lottery money back, it would be over $600 per student that they could put into the per pupil allowance. So it sickens me when I see those lottery commissioner commercials, because they're not telling the people the truth. And oh, by the way, the lottery is only 6% of the state school aid fund. It's not like the lottery is the largest source of funding for that by any means. And every time you see that commercial, that was money that could have gone into the school aid fund if the lottery hadn't paid to produce that commercial. So it's the state is not prioritizing education in any way, shape, or form.
And that goes into exactly what Heidi started out with legislative update.
Yep.
We got to protect state aid fund. Sorry, we're digressing from you, Andrea.
No.
But it
all
just
needs
shows,
to be
it's
said.
it's the budget
It is.
for the current year.
Yep.
Thank you for not sending us. But what I will say is the good news is Andrea saw many of these shell games coming and has us set up for a budget this year that it'll be tight. You know, how much of a surplus might we run? Might we run a small deficit? We don't know, or though we'll work through that. But she wasn't tricked into saying, oh, that $3 million in one-time money they gave us, they're going to give us that again too. No.
So that's on the, but did you have a question?
Just as while we're on it, and the per pupil FTE and that language, just for the benefit of the community, could you just extrapolate like the funding mechanism of what that FTE does for our district, the different pools of money, what they can be used for? So what's I guess starting out, the predominant reason and use for the per pupil funding for our day-to-day operations? Like what does that look like, and just to start?
Yeah, sure. And I think one thing to point out too, which I think is always good, is the way we receive the funding. So we talk about FTE. It's 90, so for this current fiscal year, it's 90% of this last month's October count, and full-time equivalent, so not head count, like Adam had mentioned. And then it's 10% of February of 2025's count. So it's meshed together. So it's always very confusing when we're talking enrollment numbers versus budgeting. But that is to operate the school district. So it's to fund all of our staffing, from teachers to classroom support to administration to custodial, I don't want to miss anybody, transportation, it is, food service. It's to fund everybody and the classrooms. So that's really going towards instruction. I mean, you've got the facility costs, of keeping the buildings open and operating, and the heat, for those things. So when we talk about that, I think it's a good point that, that money is being used to operate our day-to-day operations, not to, bank the money and save it to, for capital needs. That is what we need to operate day-to-day. Did that answer your question?
It did, yes, and I'm just looking at our, certainly, it's close to 80% goes to instruction and instructional support.
Yes.
Because that's our priority.
Yes.
And that's what the teachers do day in and day out, and our staff, and I think that's just so important to note, because school finance and funding can be sometimes convoluted and difficult to understand. And so it's disappointing to hear that we'll come in at a decrease, but we're still going to continue to put all the efforts towards what our priorities are, so, which has always been the students, so.
And I do, just to go on to that, I think Jake's going to give our update for the Finance Committee in a minute, but that's what I was sharing with you. And in our next board meeting, our external auditors will come in and go over this in detail with us. And I encourage anyone who has questions to join us in 2 weeks in the audience and listen to the auditors go through our budget.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on to the agenda item, we do have a summer tax resolution in your packet. The purpose of the resolution is to approve 100% summer tax levy for next summer, 2026, which would be our fiscal year 27. Under the revised school code, PA 451 of 1976, we present this resolution from year to year, but for which it was previously adopted as an ongoing resolution. Lake Orion specifically, we've chosen this 100% summer levy option over the 50-50 split between summer and winter levy for cash flow purposes when we aren't receiving state aid during the month of September. The resolution, just to point out, does indicate that the district requests each city and/or township in which this district is located to collect those summer taxes. This is standard wording, as we do work with 6 collecting taxing authorities, being Addison Township, Independence Township, Oakland Township, Orion Township, Oxford Township, and the City of Auburn Hills. Obviously, we are exploring other means of collections as we have had concerns with our increased costs with Orion Township, but each of these are separate agreements, and this resolution does not bind us to having to use Orion Township to collect on our behalf. So I just want to make sure that's known.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions?
Okay, no, that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to Finance Committee and Jake.
So the Finance Committee met today starting at 4:30. The first on our agenda was we met with the auditors. As mentioned, the auditors will be here next time at our next meeting, but the good news is they have issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of acceptance that they can have, and that has been submitted to the state by the November 1st deadline. It is fine that it was submitted because we don't approve the audit, we simply receive the audit. We have no influence on the audit. Interesting note, their details, there's each audit each year has something called a single fund audit, and that particular piece of the audit was not completed because the federal government did not issue the procedures necessary to complete that on the fund that they wanted to, and now they're in shutdown, so they won't be issuing it until it's done. Plant Moran will have 30 days from when those procedures are issued to file the audit. They did say that they've seen a draft of what it will be. They've already looked at it and said as long as it gets issued the way that it was, it'll be fairly straightforward for them to be able to file that single fund audit that they have. So, any questions on that part of the agenda? Okay. The other is we looked at the 2024-2025 fiscal year results, which were part of the audit now that they've been audited. So Andrea took the time to present it. We had a budgeted surplus of $564,000. The actual surplus was $2,295,000. That was a significant variance to the good. That pushed our fund balance percentage to over 10% of the general fund expenditures. The Finance Committee specifically asked, well, what caused the big swing at the end of the year? And there were a couple of primary reasons. Were conservative estimates used in the budget for staffing, but more so conservative estimates related to retirement contributions. The calculations are pretty complex because employees, depending on when they were hired, are in different systems. So there's different percentages that have to be contributed to their retirement balance. And Andrea wanted to present us something that was conservative so that it didn't come in under or not enough funds budgeted for what we actually had to pay. But after they went through that, they've done a study of what the costs are likely to be. So the variance in this year's budget we shouldn't be seeing that big of a swing because they got a better handle on that. The other one was special education costs and revenues that come in, and Sarah has been looking into that and helping the business office determine where those revenues and costs. But at the end of last year, we were conservative to make sure that we didn't overstate the revenue we thought we were going to get or the cost that we would have to spend, which resulted in a budget surplus when we did receive a little more revenue and we didn't spend as much cost. And like I said, staffing issues at the end of the year, the staffing costs, substitutes and things like that. There's a lot of moving parts. But overall, what we wanted to see is that we don't want to see a budget. It's good to have a surplus, but you sort of want to know that it's coming instead of just having, doing a final amendment and then it coming. And we've given that message to Heidi and understands the direction. I think as a whole board, we agree that it's good to have a surplus, but it's also good to sort of know what your surplus is going to be. So overall, that was pretty good news. And then the last thing we already talked about, was the 2025, 2026. And the good news that I don't think we mentioned was we talked about the per pupil amount going up, but building off the enrollment report, although that's not the official numbers, we could see that our actual enrollment is slightly ahead of what they projected for both resident and SOC students. So the hope is that that's going to generate several $100,000 of additional revenue that will allow for some costs that they need to work in from when there was budgeted, because the year is now developing and they're seeing where the costs are. So the thought is that although we're going to get that extra revenue, we were pretty tight on the way we budgeted costs. So they're going to look at that for staffing and some other things to see where they're at. And we'll get a full amendment in January, but they wanted to give us a preliminary view of how this year is going, especially in light of budgeted revenues coming, or state budgeted revenues coming in so late. Fair assessment? All right.
Any questions for Finance Committee? Yeah. Well, thank you for that detailed explanation and having the meeting before the meeting, so you could give us that detailed explanation. Okay, so, get back. All right, so with that, that's going to bring us to action items. May I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the following consent agenda items. Approve minutes from the October 22nd regular and October 17th curriculum committee meetings and October 29th, 2025 special meeting and closed session.
Thank you, Scott. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. May I please have a motion to adopt the 2025-26 revised board meeting schedule?
I move that we adopt the revised 2025-26 board meeting schedule as presented.
Thank you, Birgit. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion also carries. May I please have a motion to approve the international field trip for LOHS to Japan in June 2027?
I move to approve the Lake Orion High School international trip request to Japan in June 2027 as presented.
Thank you, Heather. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you for all the support. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved, and I'm sure those students will be very much looking forward to that opportunity, and staff. May I please have a motion to approve the certified new hire?
I move to approve a certified new hire as presented.
Thank you, Jake. Is there support? Support. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And congratulations once again to Abby. And lastly, may I please have a motion to adopt the summer tax resolution?
I move to adopt the annual summer tax resolution as presented.
Thank you, Scott. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? And with that, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Persett?
Yes.
Faber?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Quiston?
Yes.
Benawi?
Yes.
Singer?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
And motion carries. That brings us to the end of our action items. To public participation for other non-action items or topics, which we also have none. So recap and next steps.
As I said, I'll just continue if I receive any information whatsoever regarding 31AA. You will get it as soon as I receive it.
Excellent. Thank you, Heidi. Okay.
Danielle?
Yeah.
I think we should do a recap, our next steps for the board.
Okay.
So everyone's got audit materials to read?
Yes.
And can you remind the board
Yes.
when the SUP eval notes are due to you?
Yes, and that was going to do that as well. Yes, these, and I just want to double check. So as we all recall, we had our first closed session regarding superintendent evaluation last week. And if everyone could get their comments to me by the 14th, November 14th, I will have those compiled and to Julie to disseminate the completed comments document to everyone and Heidi by the morning of the 17th. I'll probably honestly get it done before, so we can have that for our next closed session on the 19th.
Thank you.
And if anybody has any questions about the finance stuff, because that was one of the specific goals, feel free to reach out to me one-on-one and
Yes.
walk you through it.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, closing comments. Andrea.
Adam, thank you for the enrollment presentation. I know that's a lot of work, but very well done. Wanted to say congratulations to band, cross country, and just say how much I enjoyed Halloween. I was able to get out to Oaks and Weber. A couple classes, didn't think my pumpkin shirt was as exciting as Mr. Palmieri's crayon, but I might have to step up my game next year. But it was a lot of fun to get out and see all the excitement, so.
Awesome, thank you. Adam.
Yep, congrats and welcome to Abby. Excited to have her starting in Lake Orion. Her first day will be next Monday, I believe. Congrats to our marching band and cross country, and yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Drew.
All right, yep, I echo the congrats to marching band and cross country. Thanks to Adam for the presentation. I know it's a lot of work that goes into that, and welcome to Abby, and just continued thank you to our staff for all the really great opportunities they continue to give to our students. Just really cool this time of the year to see all the work that's going on, so thank you.
Thank you. Heidi.
All right, thank you, Adam, for a thorough presentation. We appreciate that, and Andrea for explaining the budget and what it really means and the impact toward Lake Orion. Also, congratulations to our band, our cross-country at States and girls robotics and Team 302. I also want to point out regarding band and specifically robotics, the parents and their commitment. You know, being just at the band competition, you know, the parents have a role too on getting, you know, certain things set up and hauling all of the equipment. And so it's much appreciated. And then I was at the high school today. And I want to make sure all students are aware, yes, I know that there is snow in the forecast. I am paying attention. So just wanted to make that clear because I was sought out multiple times, just making sure that I was aware. So I'm aware. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go old school today and start down with Jake. Just move our way on up.
So I don't have much, I'd just say as of October 20th, 2025, according to Adam, there are 6,434 reasons we do what we do. And the focus will continue to be on those 6,434, give or take, given the day, reasons why we do what we do.
Thank you. Scott.
I did talk to Abby the other day, and she asked me if she, even though she's in college, if she needed to text Heidi when it snows, just to remind her that it's snowing.
Yeah.
My kids loved having the superintendent's phone number, so sorry about that. I wanted to talk about band for a second. So I was a marching band person, and I'm going to give you a little bit of history here. I'm going to take 1 minute. So historically, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Lake Orion was a high-step marching band. So basically, just like Michigan State, they would march. Everything was, you know, pomp and circumstance, and they're high-stepping and all that. And basically what they would do is they would march to cadence to a spot on the field. They would stop. They would play a song. Then they would cadence again, and they would walk to the next thing. So that's high step. So in 1989-90, Lake Orion went a different direction, and that happened to be my sophomore year. So at that time, that was the first year you were in high school, and we went to be a corps marching band, which basically meant you walked and played at the same time, right? So it was crazy for all of us. And I can remember in 89, 90, and 90, 91, us going to competitions that all we did was we were just there. Like, we didn't even compete because we were so bad, right? I mean, because it's this huge skill of, number one, you have to be musically perfect, and then you have to know where you're going, and then you constantly are moving. I think our first one, we had 78 marks you had to get to in 4 songs, which is just, it's crazy. So to see, yeah, it's been 35 years, but to see the fact that we are players on the field with all the big boys now, because it's still the same big boys as when we were just starting. So just kudos to that, and I just wanted to give you that little story.
Thank you, Scott. Jeff?
So I just want to express my appreciation for everyone up here and your commitment to the kids. I'm new to this, and just getting to know you all and how your focus is on the kids at all times. I mean, we had a disappointing result with the vote yesterday, but getting to see what motivates you all is an inspiration, and I hope to continue to be a big part of that going forward. On some other notes, I just want to congratulate the cross country and the robotics, and my son's in the band in 7th grade, and I love the program. It actually starts, what do you think about the music program? It starts, the foundation is all the way down at DK and goes all the way up to 12, and there's so many opportunities like that for different kids to do different activities here, and that's one of the great things we're like the perfect size district where there's so many options for students, and I really like that about this place. A couple other things. I won't be as long as Scott, but I'll be a little bit long. I recently attended a meeting for school board members, and I was really impressed. I had no idea it was coming. It was school board members from around the state, and our district was profiled for our strategic plan, which we even have hanging on the wall here. It's on the website, and I encourage people, look at the website. There's so much information on there. And we were highlighted for being very transparent on our plan. These are our guiding principles and what we do from the administration, the school board, the teachers, just the staff in general. There's so much on that website. And we, by law, have to be very transparent. It's brought up a lot online, like, oh, we need a more transparent. I challenge people to come up with a private or public entity that's as transparent as a Michigan school district. There's so much required information, and it's right there on the website. So please take a look. And if you have questions, reach out to the experts in the school district. Don't presume things. It's all there for you. So kudos to the team for putting together that strategic plan. I was new to it, but it's really comprehensive and impressive. Thanks.
Thank you. Birgit?
I want to thank our administrators for all their work and what they've done. The presentations were great. Appreciated, Adam, and thank you for all you're doing in our budget. Hi, Andrea and Heidi, for all the work you've been putting into and for tackling these legislative things that are coming up. I really appreciate that. I also wanted to share that many of us were at ALC not that long ago, and it was a really good meeting, and I think we all learned a lot, and if there's an opportunity to share more with each other and connect on that, that'd be fun, because I had some really great classes, so thanks for that opportunity to go there.
Thank you, Birgit. Susan?
Yeah, it's always hard when we keep moving down the line, so just ditto to everything my colleagues have said. We had a great ALC meeting with the boards across the state of Michigan, which is a great opportunity to come together as the boards with different districts throughout the state, understand how other districts do things. And we were highlighted quite a few times, Lake Orion, in several of the breakout sessions as really doing things in the right way. And I think we should all be very proud of our district. So we are all here for the kids, and we will continue to do what we can to make every day a great day for our children in the district. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather.
Okay, ditto to everything except the marching band part. I was not a marching band kid, nor could I step and dance and do very much all at the same time. I wanted to just take the time to thank the community and thank those that voted. Voting is such a privilege, and I appreciate those who came out, and I'm really looking forward to coming together as a community and finding a way forward. I really do believe in our town and that we will move forward together. So looking forward to that process and what that looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, we've talked about it a few times up here, the annual leadership conference with MASB, and it is a privilege to be able to go there and have these people support us in doing that and taking some time because, I walked away with extremely valuable information. But it also reminds me how fortunate we are up here. You hear stories there, and it's amazing to me. Sometimes I'm like, how do you get things done? Because what happens up at this table is not how it is everywhere. So we are so fortunate, and I'm so grateful to be up here. And I know we always say we're a team of 8. I contend we're a team of 11 because we couldn't really do it without any of these people. And so thank you so much. I appreciate everyone up here, and thank you for everything you've done with the bond. And, like we do, we keep going forward. And with that, we are adjourned.